You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. People often ask, what did you learn? What have we learned so far through spring football? And I think what Brian Kelly has learned through spring football is just how paper thin he is at cornerback, which necessitated today's news. And that is that LSU has landed a commitment, and not only a commitment, but the signature from Sevyn Banks, an Ohio State cornerback transfer. So Sevyn Banks started his career at Ohio State, and today, after entering the transfer portal and then ultimately he did declare for the draft and then withdrew, has now today pledged to LSU and signed his paperwork. He is officially an LSU Tiger. It's interesting because just yesterday on the show, we talked about, literally yesterday on the show, we talked about when they added Nick Storrs at tight end, how with thin numbers, how the real need wasn't any tight end anymore because you'd hide that. Really what they needed was cornerback, offensive tackle. And this had been whispered about a little bit that LSU was going after Sevyn Banks. So I don't think it was a tremendous surprise that the news came down today. But before spring practice, Brian Kelly, again, we played this for you yesterday on the show. Brian Kelly was asked by me what positions they were still looking at in the transfer portal, and he mentioned two.
I think our depth situation at tight end is a concern of mine. I think that's an area that we need to continue to build on, and not sure that it's a quick fix. I think it's something that we're still going to have to look at. And there may be some people that are on our roster that might have to change positions and play that position. We're going to have to address it one way or the other. So it's still a concern. There might be some movement there in the transfer portal after spring ball, but it is a concern. We're not done on the offensive line. That's still an area that we're actively involved in as well. So I would leave it at those two areas in particular.
So the head coach before spring said the depth at tight end is a concern, and they might look at the transfer portal. And he said point blank, we are not done on the offensive line. And he finished the bite by saying those two areas. Like, that was the answer. Those two. You get out on the practice field and you realize your two transfers are your starters. Bernard-Converse and Mekhi Gardner from Oklahoma State and ULL, respectively. Those two guys are out there. They're running around. They played a lot of football. But after that, you don't have much. Well, Bernard-Converse breaks a bone in his foot. He'll be back for the start of the season, but he misses the rest of spring. And you look around and you go, oh, wow, this is really, really thin. To put this into perspective, Bernard-Converse in his career has played in 51 games with 47 starts. That's the fifth most in the history of Oklahoma State football. 47 consecutive starts, by the way. Mekhi Gardner, 26 games played, 19 starts in his career at ULL. Banks, Sevyn Banks, who they just added today, played in 36 games during his 4 years at Ohio State with 15 starts. Again, so the three transfer cornerbacks, I'm not even counting Brooks and Fouché, the three transfer cornerbacks you've added, 47 starts, 19 starts, 15 starts. Every other cornerback on your roster, every other returning player at corner on your roster, Demarius McGee, Raydarius Jones, walk-ons. You're bringing in two freshmen, LaTerrence Welch and Jordan Allen. All the other cornerbacks combined, one start. One. It was Demarius McGee in the bowl game. You know, the bowl game when you had 39 players. That's it. Brian Kelly may not have thought that position was a giant need going into spring, but once you got out on the practice field and you realized that the two transfers were all you had, oh yeah, you needed to supplement that position in a hurry. And so Sevyn Banks was in the portal. They made a push, and they got him. If you're looking at numbers, that's 30 signees. Remember, because I know everybody doesn't follow recruiting all the time, and that so those of you who know this, forgive me, it's just something you learn over time. Not everyone is deeply ingrained in recruiting and rules and numbers and how that works. You can sign 25 in a class. It's a hard cap of 25 in a given year. This year, because of COVID, the NCAA allowed, in this year only, teams to sign 7 over the 25 in a 1-for-1 transfer, meaning you had 7 transfers go out, you could sign 7. If you had 5 transfers go out, you could only sign 5. If you had 12 transfers go out, you could only sign 7. It was capped at 7. So the most you could sign was 32. Obviously, LSU far exceeded that number, so they could sign 32. The 25 initials and the 7 1-for-1 on the transfers. So right now, they're at 30. They signed 15 high school kids, and this makes 15 transfers. So you had 2 spots left. They had 2 spots left. Remember, they've added Jaden Daniels, and now they've added Sevyn Banks. This is since signing day, of course. So they're at 30 with 2 spots remaining for this class. So they can still, between now and the start of next season, go out and sign an offensive lineman if there's one that they covet. If there's a tight end prospect that they're looking at, they could certainly do that as well. But, I look at this position and where LSU is on the roster. Yeah, you went and added Nick Storrs. We talked about him yesterday. That's not your answer at tight end. That's a body that gives you depth and just another body there. That's not your answer. Certainly not a long-term answer. You pursued Tyler Steen, the Vanderbilt transfer. You didn't get him. That doesn't mean you're done on the offensive line. If there's an opportunity to add another offensive lineman, you do it, especially someone with experience when you're losing 4 starters and the 5th guy, Cam Wire, seems to have just gotten beat out by a true freshman at left tackle. And now at cornerback, you've added Sevyn Banks. And listen, a big part of this spring also, has been trying out other guys at cornerback. You've tried Jordan Tolles, a safety, at cornerback. You've tried to cross-train Greg Brooks at nickel and out at the boundary. So they're looking for answers because they need them. And they got a big one today. I don't know how it's going to work out as far as who starts and what positions they go, and they're going to have to mix and match, and that's going to be a big challenge for this defensive staff to make it all work and make all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. But this is a big addition at a massive position of need that Brian Kelly didn't exactly know was that big of a position of need until they got into spring ball and realized just how thin they were. So Sevyn Banks is on board. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. He's the 5th transfer defensive back this offseason, if you include the 2 guys from Arkansas that we mentioned. Started 15 games at Ohio State, played in 36 games. He was behind a whole bunch of really talented guys there when you think about Jeff Okudah and some of the other first-round picks that they had. Damon Arnett, Kendall Sheffield at Ohio State. Finally got his turn late last season, got bit by the injury bug, declared for the draft, then ultimately pulled from the draft, entered the portal, and now he'll finish up his career 1 season to go, and he'll play it in the purple and gold at LSU. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.